Life can be harsh everywhere. But in the old world, there was no hope of it ever improving. When our crops failed, the ruling class would still collect the same share, leaving our children to starve. And if we had any coin to our name, the taxman would appear, demanding it for the crown. The nobles hid behind the safety of their walls and did nothing when raiders pillaged the outskirts of the city. And so, some of us decided that it was time to leave, that we'd rather take our chances in the wilderness, seeking the promise of a new land, than starve to death in our homeland. The journey wasn't easy. We lost many along the way. But this wild, unsettled land offers us the hope of a new start as the masters of our own destiny.
Hello guys, and welcome to our first ever Farthest Frontier live stream. Here from Crate Entertainment, I am Camille, known as Zentai on the forums, and I'll be your host this afternoon. So today, we're going to show you guys some of the gameplay, live of course, and hopefully answer some of your burning questions. How are you guys doing this afternoon? Toss a coin to your Zentai, yeah sure. Not much of a witcher. Nice to see you all again. It's been a while. The world changed, so I had to change. You don't recognize me because I got old, is that what you're saying? Who made this music? So this is our friends over at Skew Sound, who we've been working with since Grim Dawn, are still helping us out on Frontier as well. Turn this audio down a little bit. Glad you guys like the music. You'll be happy to know that we've actually set those music tracks you've been hearing earlier and a few more live on YouTube right now. So you guys can check those out, listen to them, and enjoy. UI already looks excellent, I'm glad. Yeah, shout out to the music team as I turn down the music. Well, I want you guys to hear me mostly, you know. It's all about me, obviously. We draw inspiration from any other games in the genre. Honestly, it's some old favorites. Like a lot of the people working on Frontier were real fans of, for example, Caesar games, Anno. We definitely looked at some of the more recent ones like Banished. I hope you guys enjoy what we're doing. We're very excited to get this into your hands. It's been a long effort, but it's finally coming to release. So the first thing you guys will be doing when you start up the game is you'll be clicking New Settlement. And this is where you'll be getting a lot of the options to customize your experience. We have 3 default difficulties you can start with: Pioneer, Trailblazer, and Vanquisher, to kind of cater to how challenging of a survival town you want to have. On Pioneer, things are going to be a little bit more on the easier side. You're going to start with more villagers, have more food to start with, deer will be more plentiful, and raiders will not be as frequent. In contrast, on Vanquisher, you will have to contend with many more raids on your town. They'll be more difficult. Having a standing army will be something you'll definitely want to consider having, otherwise your town might get overrun. But if raids are completely out of your area of fun, you can just turn on pacifist mode. disable that entirely. We completely understand that not everyone playing town builders is going to be interested in that experience. So pacifist mode is there for those of you that just want a leisurely trip to the frontier, where you can focus on all those old-timey diseases. But if you want to have a little bit more nuance to your settings, we can actually go to advanced, and you can customize that in much more detail for extra resources, maladies, wildlife, and raiders. You're going to try to support us, but you suck at these games as their tard mode. Well, I wouldn't call Pioneer tard mode, but you can definitely make it much easier, especially if you also then toggle off raiders. Yes, we have Bourbon Town. That's an excellent name to start with. Anyone that's played Grim Dawn will be very familiar with that name. Grim Dawn mode might be coming later. We'll have to do it as, one of those microtransactions. After like 10,000 coins, maybe you can unlock Grim Dawn mode. Should only cost about $25,000. Who made the game's music? This is Skew Sound. So why don't we dive right in? So I think for starters, I'm going to pick something a little easier and prettier, because Arid is actually one of my favorite ways to play this lately. An Arid map really changes up what kind of resources you're going to be starting with. You're going to have way less water, for example, so almost no fishing. Farming land is limited. You might have to rely more on trade to actually have food for your people, and I found that super fun. Not everybody will, but that option is out there for you. And I only play on Vanquisher because, of course. We can skip that. So when you start a new game, you will be shown our story trailer. We did just show that earlier, so we'll skip that for now. So yes, there is an extensive trading system in the game. Traders will visit your town at the trading post. You'll be able to barter with them for various goods that they bring and are looking for. For example, one of the things you could potentially do, for example, is buy them cheap from one merchant and then wait till another one comes along that's paying a much more premium price and make a profit on that. In terms of diplomacy, that's not a system we've really focused on yet, no. We might elaborate on that in the future, but that for release, it's not really going to be a feature. You cannot barter with the raiders and make them into friends, sorry. What is the largest town I've made so far? I think I got to about 1,200 before I gave up. I could have kept going, but with builds constantly in flux, I kind of wanted to start a new town of the latest stuff to make sure that we're always testing what's coming fresh from the programmers. Are pet builds viable? Well, there are cows. That kind of is a pet. How big is the development team? So let's see. On Frontier, we've got, let's see, I think 6 people currently. We've actually had some people switching back and forth on teams to make sure that Frontier is going to be as ready for you guys as possible by August 9th. Ironing out those bugs, getting optimization as well as we can. Maybe squeezing in a few more features. This is a Malmouth origin story, isn't it? It totally could be. I think Malmouth is actually one of the town names. So, I've started up a new game. You can see my villagers are kind of hanging out and waiting for me to get started. So you can look around the map and check out the nearby resources that you'll be using to get your town started. For example, in this area here, I've got a bunch of herbs. There is nuts, a herd of deer. Looks like a 3 chevron one, so that's going to be good for hunting. We've got iron on this mountain. Nice big lake with fishing. And looks like no wolves in the immediate vicinity, so that's going to make things a little easier for me. So with those deer nearby and some herbs and other things to forage at the start, this might be a pretty good starting point. In terms of fertility, I just toggled the fertility overlay so we can take a look at how fertile the ground is here. You can see that in this kind of territory, it's pretty green all around, except when you get to the mountains. Oh, there's some wolves. So not too close to those, because those guys can really mess up your people. One time when I started a session, I actually ended up getting wolves attacking me almost immediately and lost most of my town. I was down to 4 villagers, but still recovered. It was still doable. I had to do a bit of micromanagement to decide who was doing what task, but it worked. Any revolutionary gaming aspects or systems to this game? Well, what I would definitely point out right away is I think we have one of the most advanced farming systems you'll see in a town builder. It's super detailed in terms of crop rotations, soil composition, diseases that get spread between fields. You'll actually have to care about the fertility of your fields decreasing if you plant too many plants that actually drain nutrients from the soil. There's obviously the radar system. All of our resources are moved around the world in real time. They actually have a physical presence. So if your resources are stored in a storage area way off in the distance, your villagers will have to go way over there to pick them up and transport them to where they need to go. So that's something you actually have to consider when you're laying out your town. You can't just, throw everything around as far apart as possible and just expect your resources to, say, teleport back to the center of town. They're not going to do that. They're actually going to be wherever they've been dropped off. So now that my town center is placed, these guys are already getting started on chopping down the trees that are inside of its build area, but we're probably going to want a little bit more. So I'm going to mark down some trees for cutting, see if we can find some stone. There's some stone over here. And in the first year, you're going to want to focus on the essentials. Your villagers are going to need some food. They did come with a short supply of food. You can see there's 4 months of food stores that they traveled to the frontier with. But that's not going to last them, not even through the year. So we need to set up some kind of new food supply for them. Some options right at the start of the game would be to either get a hunting cabinette, a forager shack, or a fishing shack. And as you can see in this map, as I mentioned, you've got water here, there's deer up there, and things to forage all around. So really, any 3 of these options on this map would work well for me. And I'm going to start with a hunter cabin. Does it have floods? We do not have flooding. Who is Sandy Lowe and why can't we find her? I'm not sure. Any plans for multiplayer? No, this is a single player experience. Looks like an upgraded version of Banish mod support. Well, it is based on Unity, so I expect you guys to be able to dig in there with those tools. We'll have to discuss how we would support modding down the line. Obviously, that's not our priority right now. Our priority is to finish the game. But I expect that the game will be moddable just by virtue of being built in Unity. Yes, seasons, winter. So right now we're in early spring, or actually mid-spring now. It's going to shift to summer, so it's going to be optimal planting season, but we don't have any fields up yet. Does weather have any impact on gameplay? It actually does. You can have heat waves that can cause some of your harvests to fail. You can have early blizzards. Blizzards can also increase how much wood your people will be using up to stay warm in their homes. And also, surprise chills can also affect your crops as well. Being stuck out in the cold for your villagers can affect them. They can suffer from exposure, eventually developing gangrene if those wounds are not treated. Villagers can even die if they're out in the cold for too long. You may be a little bit off place, but thank you guys for creating Grim Dawn, your most played game on Steam. We rock. Well, thank you. I'm glad you liked it, and I hope you guys will like this game too. Oh, I'm talking about zoom here? Yeah, so you can zoom in pretty close and see these guys working. I'm currently running the game on 1x speed so I can keep up with you guys, but we can actually speed it up here. 3x, so those guys can get working much faster. So as I mentioned, the necessities for getting through the first year, another thing you'll want to worry about is getting firewood for your people. Sitting inside your home in winter is obviously going to protect them from most of the elements, but it's not going to be enough to survive the chill. And that's where firewood comes in. So let's get a firewood splitter up. Can we use animals or carts for transporting resources from one point to another? You actually can. There is a wagon shop you can build in the mid-tier game that will actually focus exclusively on transporting your resources from far off work camps and mines, as in all those really heavy resources that a villager can't carry very effectively. Predator sighted. Uh-oh. Yeah, looks like there's a wolf. But that hunter took care of business. Is there dark magic, demon goats, and witches? Not officially. That might be a fun reskin, though. You thought we'd make in the same engine as Grim Dawn. Was the benefit of a building in Unity? So the Grim Dawn engine is a proprietary engine that was originally used to build Titan Quest, and we've overhauled it quite significantly to make Grim Dawn. But it was built to make ARPGs. It wasn't really designed to do something like a town builder. So we had to consider what other options there were. I mean, we could have written our own engine, which would have been a significant time investment. Or we could have considered one of the major engines that exist already, like Unity and Unreal. We ultimately opted to go with Unreal, and we had to then, implement our own features on top of the baseline engine to make a town builder. Which build is that hunter using? I'm guessing it's maybe like a soldier inquisitor. Can we name or follow individual townspeople? You absolutely can. In fact, if we click on Rena here, you can center the camera right on her, and wherever she's going, the camera's going to follow. And if you want to name her, what do we had here? Mr. John Wolfslayer. Miss John Wolfslayer. She'll be here chopping wood for us. And that name gets saved in your game settings, so in future towns, you might actually see that name come up again. How many of the art assets in Farthest Frontier use wood from the Grim Dawn wooden bridges? I'm gonna guess none. Ethereal Chthonic possessed wolves would be pretty awesome. I did get attacked by super bears in one of the builds we had recently when the programmers decided to have a little fun with me. It involved bears that could teleport around, were nearly unkillable, and one-shot my villagers. I think it took 40 villagers to take one of those out. The villagers die of old age. If you're so lucky to have a prospering town that exists for many years, yes, your villagers will absolutely eventually pass on from old age. That's sort of like a symbol of success, that your town has prospered so well and for so long that people are dying of old age and not, say, typhoid. So now that we've got some of the basics, we have a hunter cabin for food and a firewood splitter to make wood for us. Let's get some homes up for these people. Now what you'll immediately see is that there's location desirability that shows up. Homes have a desirability meter, as you can see, and the more desirable a home is, the more likely it is to upgrade to the next tier. Higher tiers can support more people in them, and they generate taxes for your town, which gold can be spent at the trading post, for example, to buy goods. So this desirability is not super high yet. We haven't really invested in making this area pretty, but that is something we can improve down the line. Could you pay to have your name or name of your chosen to be added into the game? That would be cool. But you can rename NPCs, as I've mentioned. Feel free to name your NPCs after your whole family and see who makes it through the winter. How are jobs assigned? So, whenever you place a new building and there are laborers available in the labor pool, they will automatically be assigned to that role. So, for example, as soon as I built this firewood splitter, Miss Olifana got right to work. Same with the hunter cabin. But if you want to change that, we do have a professions tab that gives you a detailed rundown of exactly what your villagers are doing. And what is available is determined by what buildings you have in your town. Do the villagers have their own devotion skill trees? I think they do, but they don't want to show it to us. This looks gorgeous. Great job to our team. I'm glad you guys like it. I do think it's one of the prettier town builders out there. Are there squirrels in the game? Not yet. So here we have one of our little mini immigration quests that just popped up. As your town grows, you will get a few of these notifications throughout the game that kind of guide you along and give you some information that you can use to get more immigrants into your town and grow your population more quickly. So in this case, the game wants me to amass a 4-month supply of food and have at least 6 houses. That's a pretty easy early goal, and as soon as you achieve that, you will notice that some immigrants will show up and make my population larger, which means more people that can do work around town, chopping trees, making farms, whatever else you need. Do we spend a lot of time in the professions window? I wouldn't say you'll spend a lot of time in there. It's definitely something you'll probably access pretty regularly, but it's not something you're just gonna have open all the time. Are all villagers the same, or are some better in different fields? We do not have skill sets for villagers, if that's what you're going for. So in terms of ability, villagers all perform their roles equally. So you don't have to really worry about, micromanaging which villager goes to which job. It's just, you want a villager doing this, they're available, they'll go do it. What do we think Farthest Frontier's selling point is compared to other city builders? I think the setting is great, although lately we've had a lot of similarly medieval themed builders coming out, of course right when we're doing it. The big highlights are definitely the resource system, the farming system, the trading system, the progression you feel as your town is growing. So buildings can upgrade. You can produce, I think, over 70 different items in the game. So there's a lot of depth, a lot of variety. And I think that's really what we focused on, is quality and variety, and just, a uniquely deep experience. Is there exploration? So you can see around here that I only have a small area explored, and I can in fact set down exploration markers to have my villagers set out there and explore more of the map. Can you build roads? I did skip roads for now because whenever I'm starting a new game like this, I'm always focusing on the priorities. I want them to get firewood going. I want them to get some food. I want them to have houses. And while roads are great for speeding up how fast villagers get around, they're not critical to villagers surviving. So yeah, now that things are kind of settled down, yeah, we absolutely can get roads set up. Get one over here. And why don't we get a forager up to get some of this willow and these berries gathered as well. Only noobs use exploration markers. Pros use direct control. Well, excuse me. I only use direct control when I need to send my villagers on a suicide mission to take out wolves. Speaking of, those are getting awfully close. When you have guards/soldiers, do you take control of them anyway, or is it automated based on threats or markers, exploration markers? Both. By default, your soldiers are going to be garrisoned in a barracks or towers, and from there they'll use their ranged weapons to take out any threats that get too close. However, you can deploy them using a rally flag, where they will automatically patrol to the area you've marked and attack anyone that gets too close. Finally, if you want, and I can even show you how this works with regular villagers, is you can select your villagers just like in an RTS, and then you can command them to do whatever you need. So in this case, I've told these guys to go over here, and they're going to line up and wait for future commands. And the same thing can be done with the soldiers. How soon will winter come? We're about halfway through the year now, late summer. I don't know, we toggle that on so you can see it at all times. This might have been necessary. Are maps generated or handmade? Our maps are randomly generated. Every time you start a new map, it's going to be completely different. It's going to have different resources. The resources are going to be different locations. The layout's going to be different. The type of map you might select will also determine how the seed is interpreted. You can, however, as you can see here at the bottom of the menu, there is a seed for my town. And you can write that seed down and enter it in advanced options for a new settlement. And if you want to play the exact same town in the exact same map, or you want to give your friends the map you played on to have them try to make a bigger town than you, you absolutely can. Yes, what you do is you send out villagers to draw aggro, then run away and kite wolves while hunters' guards fire at it. Another trick is to aggro those wolves and send them to your town center to shoot them down. Are there difficulty settings beyond enemy threat? Yearline scaling or shorter winter? We don't have scaling on seasons. I did mention at the beginning, if you haven't come in from the beginning of the stream, that there are difficulty settings you can set right when you start the town. You can change the intensity of diseases. You can change your starting resources and population. You can change the animals that appear. So for example, in lower difficulty settings, you'll see more deer and less wolves. You can set how intense raids are. What negative events or setbacks exist? Well, let me put it in perspective, I guess. One time, my town ran out of soap in the middle of winter, and we had a bit of a smallpox outbreak. A third of the population later, we did eventually solve that problem, but there were some consequences. Can you plant new trees? You actually can. If you go under decorations, you see that there's a number of tree options you have. This is good if you want to just make something decorative, or if you want to actually plant trees for future cutting down. Are there different biomes with different foliage and resources? Yep. So as I've mentioned, there's currently, I think, 5 different biomes you can start with. So if you want like a very specific environment, or you can select random, and then the game will generate something completely unique for you. So for example, arid, as I mentioned, will be very high on some resources, but very low on others, and that can drastically change your experience. Can you settle more than one town on the same map? No, it's one town per map. You could make little sub-settlements where you have houses and production buildings kind of together, like further away from your main town. But in terms of having a town center that defines what a town is, you'll have one per map. How do you increase your population? Well, there's 2 ways. There's the traditional nature method, which I hope you've learned about already, and there's immigration. So earlier in this game, we had a pop-up that said we could attract more immigrants if we have 4 months of food and 6 houses. So currently, I don't really, well, actually did just get enough food to trigger that, and we have 6 houses. So soon we might actually have an immigration event occur, and more people will arrive. Throughout the game, though, you will also just have random immigration events that villagers will immigrate to your town in small groups, or you might have larger arrivals of, say, 8 villagers that might show up and ask to be allowed into your town. If you can't support that addition to your population, you can decline them. But it is also a nice big boost to your labor pool. Can you discover different biomes in one map? Well, I guess it depends on what you consider to be a biome. For example, this is a lush forest here, and we've got mountains, so those would be 2 different biomes. So there's map types, like arid, as I mentioned, but there's also biomes, which are the sub-details within a map. So yes, within each map, you're going to have a variety of biomes. There's for example, a large lake right here. This is probably way out of scope, but is there any chance of your previous successful towns becoming raiding parties in later games? That would be quite meta. It's like you make an established settlement that becomes big and powerful, and then you start preying on your future towns. That'd be quite a twist. So would you hate yourself for being too successful before? How much time will tree conservation take? It'll be generous, like, say, Minecraft, where trees grow fast and don't take much effort, or rigorous, like, say, Microtown, where planting takes a lot of time. Planting trees is not expensive. As you can see, it only takes a gold per tree. I don't currently have gold in my town, so those aren't going to get planted. But it's not super complicated. Those guys can plant those. Those trees will grow. It'll take a few years for them to get to full size. So not quite as fast as, say, Minecraft, but still not too bad. And looks like we actually have our group of immigrants showing up now. Do we have content updates planned for the game? We absolutely plan on supporting this game throughout early access and beyond. Where we go with that will actually kind of depend on what you guys are interested in too. We definitely want to add more buildings in the future. We're discussing having another tier of housing, actually, that like the ultra lucrative tier where you can reach at the end of the game. And some things beyond that, kind of depending on what we think will be interesting and what you guys might find fun. But that's kind of what early access is for. So as we can see here, because I've triggered that immigration event, I now have 7 people that have arrived, and they hope to join the village. And we do have the space for them, so why don't we just let them right in? But we're gonna need more food to support these guys. So why don't we get another hunter cabin set up? And one thing I forgot right by my homes here is that we did not put a well down. While your villagers can get water from the nearby lake, contaminated water can actually cause all sorts of conditions like worms or dysentery. Let's prioritize this rock over here so those laborers will get right on cutting that rock up so we have stone to make this well. Along with raiders and predators, can we have traitors if people get too unhappy? I wouldn't say traitors, there are deserters. So if your people get too unhappy with conditions in your town, they will leave and seek their luck elsewhere, and they will take some things with them, like for example the clothes they're wearing or some food supplies. Now the question is another tier of housing. So as I mentioned when we were placing houses, there is a desirability value that homes have that determines how likely they are to upgrade. So for example, these starting shelters, they're looking for a desirability of at least 30 to get up to the next tier. So if we add another tier of homes, you would be looking at homes that have really high desirability. And those homes would pay the most taxes and have the most population space. On the hardest difficulty, should we be worried about a raider-style Protoss rush? But they're not going to cannon rush you if that's what you're going for. On contamination, what sort of sanitation options are there? So if you even look in my home over here, they're already starting to generate waste. And the way you dispose of that is by building a compost yard, which we haven't unlocked yet. But we'll want to get on that soon, otherwise waste is going to build up, which could cause diseases as well. So in order to get a compost yard, we're going to need a saw pit, because we're going to need planks to build one. And to get a saw pit, we're going to need to get some storage. So initially, we haven't worried about storage too much because we're just getting the basics up. But next thing we can do is get a stockyard up, where various raw resources such as wood and stone will be stored for the town. You can make barracks or something if we don't have pacifist mode. Even if you have pacifist mode and you just want to have an like RP having a barracks in your town, you absolutely can. And yes, a barracks is one of the methods of defending your town from raiders. Will there be endgame disasters? Will an endgame disaster be Grim Dawn? That would be a nice twist, but no, this is not a prequel to Grim Dawn. Grim Dawn 2 when? Someday. It would be a shame for us to abandon the ARPG genre. How much real time is a full year at 1x speed? I forget. I think it might be about 20 minutes, maybe a little more. Will there be tech development trees such as in the Civ series? And is this just building on random maps, or will there be campaigns such as Tropico Anno have? We're not planning to do a campaign. It is building on random maps, as you mentioned. In terms of tech trees, we've talked about doing something like that. I'm not sure we'll do something like that for release, but maybe down the line. Because it would be fun to have something like that, a little bit more depth to the game. Are the natural disasters, tornadoes, flooding? We opted not to do natural disasters. The way they often work in town builders is like, it is kind of fun to see your town get devastated, but maybe only once and after you saved. To have it happen randomly can be pretty crushing sometimes. How many tiers are there? So there's 4 tiers of town center and 4 tiers of homes right now. Is this a roguelike kind of game, or can you save and branch your save as much as you want to? You can save as many times as you want. There's an autosave system that also triggers on an interval that you can set. Is it possible to take screenshots without the UI? It absolutely is. You can toggle the UI right off and take awesome shots of your town in action. You can also pause the game if you wish. Sorry to pound the Grim Dawn train, but is there any chance you would make a lore book PDF for Grim Dawn, maybe as a DLC? A lore book would be pretty fun. I just don't know when we're going to find the time to do it. I think some people have actually compiled all of the lore notes in the game already. It's a pretty big effort. Is there a forced stopping point, or can we have our towns go on indefinitely? You can go on as long as you want. Like I said during development, I've often stopped at certain points just to get the latest stuff in. I want to have a fresh town with all the tech that's been changed. But you can go as long as you want. There's going to be any controller support at early access launch, by the way. You'd love to gem this on the Steam Deck. We have not tried running this on a Steam Deck yet. I feel like it would be fine. Not officially supporting controllers. Someone who just had a colony on RimWorld had its map go up in flames 4 times now. Yeah, that's been my experience in RimWorld as well. How many orbs to buy food? I think it's 5, but you're gonna have to spend at least 10 shards per orb, and you might get a partial orb sometimes. Other map size options. Yes, so when I was starting my game, I actually selected a small map. There's small, medium, large settings that will determine how large amount of space you have to work with, obviously. So a smaller map might be a little more difficult because you're not going to have as many resources on the map to access. And there it is, there's winter. Thankfully, since we prepared, our people have enough wood, but they're kind of low on food, so they'll probably be okay. Maybe a little hungry. How many people are working at Crate now? I think we're at 14. I'm losing track. It's so big. What a big company. You don't enjoy town builders because you're not good at them, and you're going to buy it to fund Grim Dawn too. That's fair. Well, honestly, I hope you give it a try. I think, especially once we get more tutorials up, like I'm not playing with tutorials for obvious reasons, but there are tutorials, and we're planning to add more to make this starting experience more approachable for everybody. How do you start the pact that dooms your entire settlement to mortal living as a damned on damned horde? Well, you're going to need to get a necromancer to join your town first. Then you're going to have to be really mean to him and make him really angry till he curses your people. Is there any campaign stuff like Tropico 4? There is not a campaign. It's all randomized maps. Hey, we got some more food. Hunters must have done their job. Are we still selling Grim Dawn? Well, I would certainly hope so. Actively getting sales. And yep, we're absolutely still seeing fresh faces coming to the game every day. Like if you ever stop by Reddit or the Steam forum, or even ours, like you will see new members all the time, asking questions, getting help, looking up builds. It's got a very long tail, and we're very happy to see how long the game has lasted. We actually did, if you haven't played it recently, we did just have a patch for Grim Dawn that, you know, in addition to bug fixes, we've done a bunch of balancing, as always, to increase build diversity. And 2 of the big things we focused on was having more skill points available on a bunch of gear slots to kind of increase availability for more niche playstyles. So there's some more memey builds that aren't going to set world records that now have access to more skill points where they previously would struggle to do so. And the bigger thing, though, was rebalancing ranged weapons. Where previously there were only, say, I think maybe 5 guns that had 100% chance of passing through enemies. And as you can imagine, that's a pretty powerful mechanic. And in the past, we've experimented with having some guns have pass-through only on certain skills, and that worked out pretty well. And so we went all the way with that. We got rid of those 100% pass-through weapons and made pass-through available for all ranged weapons in the game through the weapon pool skills and masteries and on various gear. Is the DLC worth it? I'd like to think so. Is there an option to scale UI text elements? Yes, there is. There's one of the settings we have. You have 5k hours in Grim Dawn. That's it? And you haven't left a negative review yet? Do people would need winter clothes? So our villagers, since they arrived on the frontier, did come with some hide coats. Eventually, as the population grows and hide coats get worn out, you will need to make new ones. And that's where some of the future resource buildings we'll be making are. For example, a tannery. And speaking of resource buildings, we need to get that saw pit up. And now you can see that I'm trying to place a saw pit. If I try to do it near these houses, they're going to turn red. And that's because people don't want to live near a saw pit. So we're going to put it a little further away. Here, why not? Right next to those wolves. We'll see if they get aggroed. Are there religions or cults in the game? Not currently. That might be fun to implement, though. What have we got? That has already been asked. Will there be ultrawide screen support? I don't think ultrawide is currently supported. Oh, it looks like we got a bear attack. So let's pause the game here and get this guy inside this town center. Get to safety. Everybody in there. And shoot that bear down. What are the dangers that this game poses? Are there physical opponents? Does the challenge come from either natural or environmental causes? A bit of both. You can have raids attacking you. On a higher difficulty, there are even invading armies that will demand payment or they will attack you. There are diseases. There are wolves and bears, as you can see. You see the running animation for the trailer has been improved. Yeah, so we recorded that footage a long time ago, and when you guys pointed it out on various forums, like, we noticed there was actually an issue that we didn't notice ourselves, that some of the settings for when villagers start running weren't properly hooked up, and villagers were doing their full run speed animation like way faster than they were supposed to. So yes, that is much better now. Which of the crate devs is hosting this? You're GD Noob, and I'm looking forward to FF entering early access. So I'm Zantai on the forums, if you might have seen me posting our various development updates. If you're looking forward to Frontier, it's coming to early access this August. If you guys haven't heard yet, we're super pumped for you guys to be playing it soon. In fact, we're actually going to have some YouTubers and streamers get access to some keys here in the future. So besides this stream that's happening right now, there's actually going to be more people streaming this game soon, checking it out, giving you their honest opinions, and kind of giving you an in-depth look at the game you'll be playing yourselves pretty soon. After the bear is dead, can villagers scrap it for food? Yes, they can. Once it is dead, it leaves a carcass that the villagers can harvest and process for meat and tallow and hides. Zenta is like the most famous crate designer. Sure. I'm pretty sure Evil Madeira has that title. Bridges, tunnels, roads over hills. So roads over hills are absolutely possible. I could, for example, make a road right over here, and they can get on building that. We do not have tunnels. We would like to get bridges. Bridges would be great. Currently, the game does not have bridges, but maybe. Is there a plan to do an early access demo? You want to try it, if it plays more like Anno or Banished. So we are not planning to do a demo. That said, Steam is pretty generous with its refund policy. You can check the game out for up to 2 hours, and if you don't like it, you can get it refunded, no questions asked. So I think that's kind of like a demo these days. Do we have a price tag yet? Madeira, do we have a price tag we want to give them yet? Can you make multiple settlements? Can you name the world in general? So each map you make is a settlement, and you can name the settlement whatever you like. This one happens to be called Bourbon Town. An homage to a famous character from Grim Dawn. GOG for the final release 2, please. Currently we're focused on Steam. We'll see about GOG down the line. Not currently, especially not for early access. Yeah, I think we set the price to $29.99. I like how neither of us remembers this for sure. It's going to be around there. You might end up buying the game even if you don't end up playing it just because you love GD. Well, I'm glad you feel that way. Is there any statistics view? Oh boy, let me show you the statistics view. So here we have the annual report. The full rundown of everything going on in your town. What is the sandbox mode goal of the game? So we're actually still expanding what endgame means. For example, as I mentioned earlier, we're adding another tier of housing. So that will be a pretty steep goal to aim for, is having a town with tier 5 houses in it. If we do things beyond that, we'll see. We're still discussing what kind of buildings we want to add. But yeah, I would say it's sort of like those endgame goals would be getting your town to the highest tier, getting your home to the highest tier. Oh, there's a wolf. Get in there. Get away. There. And see, that wolf got chopped up. And it's going to be in the stew later, I guess. Are there jails like in Devil's Crossing? We do not currently have a jail. That would be kind of a fun mechanic to incorporate, having crime. We'll see. We'll see what we do down the line. Man, those wolves are popping out. Sooner or later, someone's going to get rabies. Can my town do Kala? I don't think so. I mean, she has a bonus against guards. Is there a government structure? You are the government. Fully autocratic. Do we have a roadmap for DLC after it's released? We have ideas of what we want to do post-release. It's not something we're ready to talk about yet. We'll definitely get into that down the line. How fast does food spoil? So that actually depends on which food you're talking about. So nuts will actually take a long time to spoil. Raw meat, on the other hand, will spoil much faster. So another thing we can do over here is go under food production, and we can get a smokehouse up. And that is going to smoke the meat, which will make it last much longer in storage. Another thing we can do to help preserve food longer is get a root cellar up. But for which we'll need more stone. Let's get some more stone marked for harvest. Get on that, guys. Can you name or customize villagers? You absolutely can. I forget where Miss Wolfslayer is. Maybe that's her? Nope, that's Vicky. Well, she's around. Why don't we name this guy, What have we got here? Lip gloss. Yep, we got Mr. Lip Gloss here now. Can villagers decide what to eat and save nuts, for example? Villagers will prioritize the food that's gonna spoil sooner. But they also try to diversify what they're eating. So one of the requirements for upgrading your houses is actually having sufficient food categories. So villagers will want to have more variety in their diets to progress to the higher tiers. So right now, this home, for example, is only stocked with meat, so it's got 1 out of 2 food varieties required to upgrade. Is the UI scalable like Grim Dawn? Yes, it is. And as you can see now, we've gotten our second immigration quest. This one is to make a market, which will not only generate gold for the town, which will be important for trading later, but it's also going to improve how food is distributed among the houses around. And it'll actually provide desirability, which is what I mentioned is necessary for upgrading. So to make a market, we need a soppit, which we have, and we need a storehouse, which we do not have yet. So let's get one of those up. And this is not the best laid out town, I'll say that, but we're just doing this for demonstration. If you can remember roughly how many citizens could the average player expect to have by an endgame village, I mean, I think that's going to be entirely up to you what you consider to be done. I've gotten a town up to over 1,000 villagers, and then I decided to move on to a new town. I could have kept going, for example. You might think that getting to a tier 4 housing is where you want to stop, so that might be sooner than that population. So it kind of depends on what you're going for, how big of a town you want to have. Is the city center and houses the only buildings you can upgrade? Oh, not at all. In fact, most of the buildings I currently have up on the screen can be upgraded. A root cellar can be upgraded to tier 2, which provides it with increased storage capacity and reduced rate of food spoilage. Likewise, a hunter cabin can be upgraded to have additional item recipes because they can actually start hunting small game for hides, and it'll have increased durability in case raiders decide to attack it. How big is the area to build a town? That depends on how large of a map you made. Oh boy, while I was here looking at your questions, what we had happen is that our people got attacked by wolves. And here we have Morona with rabies. And in the time of Frontier, when somebody catches rabies, that's kind of a death sentence. So Morona here is not going to be alive much longer. So what we might want to do is prepare for what's to come, which is to get a graveyard up. If we don't bury the dead, eventually the corpses will attract rats. And as you can imagine, rats can breed diseases. So graveyard is a good solution to that problem. Not to mention that villagers that don't get to bury their friends will be a little bit more unhappy. So if you want to give them a chance to grieve, another reason to get a graveyard up. Can you build a village of 10 million people? Can engine handle that? I'm gonna say the engine cannot handle 10 million people. I think that might actually have like a villager in every square inch of the map at that point. Are the goods and resources transferred settler style, or do they just get added to your bank? So goods are transferred in real time, and that's one of the important features in this game that you'll have to pay attention to. Wherever they're dropped off, that's where they'll physically be, and villagers will have to grab them and bring them wherever they need them. So if you have stores that's very far away from where it needs to end up, that's actually going to affect the efficiency of your town. So if villagers are running way on the opposite side of town to get wood they need to turn into planks, that's going to slow down how many planks they produce. So for example here, I built my stockyard way on this side, and my saw pit over here. It's not necessarily the best option. So that's going to increase how much time those guys are spending running back and forth, bringing materials to this building. Is there a system of class / caste? Example, villagers that live in tier 4 homes are wealthy than the villagers that live in tier 1 housing. Sort of. Villagers in tier 4 housing do have higher expectations. They expect the desirability to remain high. They want more food types. They want more amenities around. While tier 1 shelters like we have right here have pretty low expectations. In fact, you could place these shelters next to a saw pit and they'll live there just fine. They won't be happy about it, but it's not going to make the home become abandoned, for example. Can we heal villagers with a credit card? Not right now, no. Maybe later we'll have to get some frontier coins or something. What time period does this game occur in? It's left ambiguous. You can imagine whatever time period you like. It is sort of medieval colonial times themed. Can you pay off the invading armies with real money? Yeah, if you just send your money to Create Entertainment for no reason whatsoever, yeah, we'll take care of those raiders for you. Does demolishing buildings return materials? Yes, if you want to salvage a building, it will reclaim half of the resources spent. Is there any magic-related aspect? No, there's no magic in this game. This is grounded in reality. Will there be threats to your village other than natural threats like disease, hunger, and so forth, like monsters attacking other villages? So as I've mentioned, there are raiders that will attack periodically. You can toggle raiders off if you don't like that mechanic. We plan to implement challenge leagues. Every 3 months, a reset of new achievements and some rewards, new skins for your town hall to gain. And yes, you're an ARPG player and interested in any crate game. It's not something we've really talked about. If that's something the community's into, I guess we can consider it down the line. I've never really thought about having seasons for Town Builder, though. Yeah, Wolf, get wrecked! Let's try this. This is a stream, let's do it. Alright, everybody, go take care of those wolves. We'll see how many survive. Oh, we got rabies already. It's one. Take out the den! There it goes. Alright, wolf's taken care of. Only lost 2 people, it's no big deal. Do settlers have individual stats? They don't have stats in terms of skills. They do have their own needs and health values. So for example, this guy hasn't had enough to eat recently, but he is warm and he's mostly happy for now. But if that food keeps going lower, he'll eventually start losing happiness there and might suffer with his health as well. Are there planning features? For example, you want your brewer there, but don't build it yet. You can reserve the space. So you can place construction sites and then pause them so they're not actually getting built. So that is one form of pre-planning you can do. Yeah, so we got a sick resident of rabies over here. Oh no, Miss John Wolfslayer. She's not gonna make it, guys. We probably shouldn't have named her that. We rigged it. It was meant to be. How long is the game meant to last? Decades, centuries? Are you meant to go through eras in technological advancements along the lines of perma-frontier times and make a sprawling frontier town? So it is a fixed era technologically. You do not advance to new technological eras. I've had games run for 80, 90 years. So, you know, approaching a century. And you can keep going as long as you want. Are there going to be GD references in the game, NPC names, area names, etc.? So, I mean, I've already mentioned Bourbon Town over here. If that was an obvious reference, we have Malmouth as a town name. There's a bunch more. You guys might want to check out the trading post periodically and see who stops by, just in case. Not gonna say why. What does education do for villagers? So, a couple things. First off, education does make villagers more efficient at the jobs they do. It's also necessary for certain buildings to be run. In order to have a healer's hut, for example, there needs to be a villager of at least a basic education working in there. When you're young and played SimCity, you always spawned Godzilla in the end to destroy what you had built up. You think you should be able to import Grim Dawn characters to slaughter your villagers? What kind of characters you role-play in Grim Dawn? You're supposed to be the hero here. Are there different biomes? Yep. So in terms of what we call a biome would be a sub-area of the map. So this would be a forest biome. This is a mountain biome, a lake biome. But in terms of themes, we also have themes you can select at the beginning of the game. For example, make an arid map, a mountain map, a lakes map, a plains map. Will we make GD2 and UE5? We're actually working on our own engine for our future games. And I imagine when the time comes, Grim Dawn 2 will run on that as well. What if your Grim Dawn character was just a soldier who uses scythes and wants to become a farmer? Well, then you'll fit right in. How often does the trading post update? Do you need to be looking at the trading post every 5 minutes? It's random, and it does have a pop-up that lets you know that a new merchant has arrived. Merchants do arrive throughout the year. Every year you'll have at least one merchant arrive, but you could have more. And if you upgrade the trading post to tier 2, you'll actually have not only more merchant types visiting, but more of them will come every year. Are you able to lock your town down due to COVID? Well, kind of. You can actually quarantine sick villagers inside the healer's house, which you can upgrade to a hospital for larger capacity. And so yeah, so if villagers are sick with contagious disease, they will actually seek out space at a hospital to limit the spread of the disease. So if you don't have enough space in your hospitals for all your sick villagers, those diseases will spread more rampantly. What are the next projects besides this one? So we're still keeping a tight lid on some of those projects, but we do have an RTS in the works, and we have a survival horror game in the works. We will reveal more on those when the time comes. Are you going to have a soundtrack of awesome music? Well, we actually played some of the tracks for the game before the stream started today, and all those soundtracks are actually up on YouTube right now. So if you stop by our YouTube channel, Create Entertainment, you can check those tracks out. Pro move is to garrison your sick people inside the town center and keep them there until they die of starvation. Well, that's the Madeira strategy, everybody. I didn't give you that idea. It'd be cool if there were some sort of stats, though, that you could breed like a race of people who are more resistant to disease and can live with rats or something. So like a rat colony? Looks like I need a Fletcher. You are right. I'm not paying attention, but yes, my guys over here, my hunters, are actually out of arrows. And because of that, they're unable to work. So to fix that, we do in fact need to get a Fletcher up. And while we're at it, why don't we get that market up as well? As you can see, a marketplace has an area it affects. This is the work area of the building. That's where the person working in the market is going to work in all the houses there to bring food and firewood and other supplies to those homes. And they'll generate income for every single one of the homes in that area. And it looks like also my population has capped out. So let's continue this terrible layout that I have and get a few more homes up. This is one of those times when I have to say, please don't do this at home, kids. This town layout is not a good one. I'm just doing it to get a bunch of buildings on screen as possible. Will this stream also be on YouTube? Yep, we'll get a recording of it up on YouTube later for you guys. Anyone that's missed the beginning or hasn't had a chance to watch it at all. Is there a way to play early builds of Grim Dawn, B14 or 17, for example? Not officially. I think there are ways to do that on Steam, but we're not officially supporting that. If you want to do some kind of Wayback Machine, knock yourself out, I guess. Yeah, let's bring back Build 9, the ultimate Grim Dawn experience, before the devs ruined it. Do different map types have different types of seasons? They do not. We would like to get a little bit more variation, though. For example, to have an arid map have shorter winters and hotter summers. That's not a feature we currently have, but it would be really cool to get. Are there in-game holidays? There are not in-game holidays. We're leaving things like that ambiguous. whatever culture you want your people to have. We're not, for example, saying that there's Christmas in the game. Are there going to be skins for buildings? So you could, for example, have a town with Eastern buildings. You know, that is actually something we've talked about, and I feel like maybe we should do that to just have reskin options for your town so you can kind of customize it the way you want. I'm not sure when and if that's going to happen, but yeah, that's something we've talked about. You just joined, so you don't know if this has been answered, but what is the end goal of each playthrough in Farthest Frontier? End goal is kind of up to you. What do you want to aim for? You might want to have a prosperous town that's all tier 4 houses, for example. Or maybe you want to survive an invading army. It's kind of up to you what you feel is a town that's complete. Where do you feel that you've reached that point where your town is optimal and awesome and you're taking all your great screenshots? How feature complete will early access launch be, or how long is early access anticipated to be? We anticipate it's going to probably be on the order of, I think it was 8 to 12 months that we've talked about. In terms of features, the game is very complete. You can get through all the tiers that we have right now, from tier 1 to tier 4, get all those buildings, all the resource production that we have, gather and produce over 70 different resources. So in terms of early access, you're getting a very complete experience. We want to keep growing that experience for you, but if you pick up early access in August, you will have a game that feels complete. Will players be able to upload their town and have others be able to open them? There's no reason why not. It's going to be a save file on your computer, so if you want to, say, zip it up and upload it to, Google Drive or something and share it with others, yeah, that's absolutely possible. You can also, as I've mentioned before, write down the seed for your town and use that seed when generating a new town, and you or someone else could play on the exact same map with the exact same settings. What lessons have we learned from Grim Dawn that influence our work on Farthest Frontier? Which aspects are different? I don't think we learned anything. Yeah, obviously, the more we make games, the more experience we're going to be at doing them. Like, we've improved some of the processes we've used throughout Grim Dawn to do things more efficiently. I don't think I can really pinpoint any particular lesson that we've taken from Grim Dawn development. I mean, we've been a team for so long that we kind of know what everybody is great at doing, so we can get the right people on the right tasks and do things efficiently. That's also another benefit of having a smaller team like ours, is that while yes, everybody gets to wear many hats, we're all very good at wearing those hats. So, as you can see on these 3 houses over here, we're starting to get some waste buildup because I still haven't gotten that compost yard up. So let's put it right here next to these houses and make them all super sad. But you know what? Maybe it might be time to start thinking about getting some fields up before we cut this stream off. So let's get a road up way over here. Get that compost yard over here. And why don't we make our first farm? Nothing too major. Start with that. So when you're placing a field, you can decide how big of a field you want it to be. There's a certain minimum size of 5 by 5 and a maximum of 12 by 12. And you decide how big of a field you want, and it's going to obviously affect how many villagers are needed to work that field, but also how big of a yield that field is going to generate. What other customization options or buildings currently in the game? So there's a lot of buildings. I think it's over 50 buildings. I'm losing track. But if you go through this build menu, there's quite a few. And many of these buildings have upgraded tiers as well. Are there dogs and cats? Not currently. That'd be fun to add, though. How's Crate Entertainment's coffee? Well, that depends on whose house you're in. If you didn't know, Crate Entertainment is 100% remote. So the quality of the coffee is largely going to be dependent on the person that is working in that house. I don't drink coffee, so my coffee's terrible. Does the rain always last a couple seconds, or is the duration random? Duration's random. You might get a long rainstorm or something brief, kind of like in real life. Do you ruin farmland over time? Well, that's up to you. How you maintain your farm. So, as I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, farming is actually one of the major features in Farthest Frontier. You will decide what kind of crop rotation you want to have, what kind of crops you're going to plant, how much time is going to be spent on maintaining a field, the composition of the ground the field is planted on, and all that is going to impact how fertile it is, how many weeds there are, and that will impact what your yields are. So will a farmland become ruined over time? If you plant nothing but carrots year-round every year, yes, eventually it will be. How does the trade system work? Do you buy goods with gold, or do you trade resources? So you buy goods with gold, but you sell your goods for gold. So it's sort of a two-step process. It's 6 a.m. here in New Zealand. Thanks for all the questions and answers. You're happy with the progress and plan. We'll be buying it ASAP. Awesome. Glad to hear it. Thanks for joining us at 6 in the morning. I'm definitely not functional at that hour. Can you macro manage the rotation? So if we get this field up a little bit in a few minutes, I'll show you the UI for that. And yeah, you can decide exactly what crops are planted, and it's a 3-year crop rotation. So you decide year 1, what happens year 2, year 3, and then it's going to roll back around. Is there any end goal winning condition in a match of Farthest Frontier? There is not an explicit victory condition. You decide when your town is finished, when you're happy with the results. Is there going to be a custom map creation tool? We're not ready to talk about modding yet. I imagine that's something we'll get into down the line. Maps are currently randomly generated, so you wouldn't really have a map you make and load. Are there any special kinds of events like natural disasters or diseases? Well, speaking of diseases, you got a villager stricken of cholera right over here. Edker, the hunter. And because we don't have soap yet, that might be a problem. Can you plant Ogden blooms? Well, of course not. You have to go farm them. Don't you have a rotation? Can you make coal gold mines? Absolutely. In my area here, looks like I have some iron, but I bet if I explored further out, I would find some coal and gold deposits as well. Not in the immediate vicinity. Yep, already another dude of cholera. See, it's spreading already. How do you lock more buildings? So, some buildings have prerequisites such as having other buildings in your town. In the case of some of these that I've placed already, I wasn't able to place a compost yard until I had a saw pit, until I had, I think, a storehouse as well. So some of these buildings have different building requirements, but then a bunch of them, for example, you can see tier 2 and tier 3 are locked completely. And for those to unlock them, you actually need to upgrade your town center. And it looks like I'm missing some stone to do that. It looks like we have 11 stone, we need 25. I bet there's some stone around here somewhere. That seems to be one of the limitations on this map I have, is that there actually isn't a lot of stone. So that might be something I'll struggle with down the line, and might have to trade for. Oh, there's some bigger rocks. Is it possible to have maps generated that are missing resources, therefore forcing trade workarounds? Absolutely, as I've actually just mentioned with stone. This map seems to be pretty low on stone, so that might be something I might have to end up trading for down the line. That's what I get for picking Egyptians. Ah, Settlers 3 joke. Is there any automatic trade by stone if you have less than 500? We don't have automatic trading in at this time to sort of maintain a certain level of resources. That might be a good feature to add though, we'll see. So we just had 2 people die of cholera, and 3 more people have it. So this is not going too well. If only I had gone soap up sooner. How did I get into game development? I'm actually originally a former engineer, but I loved modding. I spent a lot of my free time when I was younger modding games. I made a lot of stuff for Warcraft 3 and StarCraft 2, and that's kind of what got me interested in game development when I realized that that's a thing people get paid for. And I wasn't an artist, I wasn't a programmer, so those avenues didn't really make sense for me. But that was the point when I realized that a designer is a thing that people do. And I like to think I'm okay at it, so I applied for jobs and I ended up at a company called 38 Studios that no longer exists. But because of that, I got to meet Arthur Madeira, who's in the chat, and the rest is history. Been here for 10 years. Can you die of dysentery? Of course you can. What kind of game do you think we're making here? You've been watching and you have to say it doesn't really appeal to you, but you do have one question. When is Grim Dawn 2 coming? Someday? I don't really have an explicit answer for you there. Where are your people pooping? You really want to watch that? I mean, seems like it's piling up right out here, so I guess it's right in the backyard. Thankfully, we already have our compost yard, and this poor guy here has the duty of being the night soil collector. So he's gonna come around and he's gonna clean those houses up. Is Grim Dawn 2 going to have a different engine? Yes, it will. Another death to cholera. The sooner you give us money for Farthest Frontier, the sooner we'll have more funds for Grim Dawn 2. Just saying. See, they might be onto something. Just saying. So give us all that Farthest Frontier money, alright? Have them poop in the compost yard. Be a part of the solution, not part of the problem. Efficiency. A compost yard in every yard. What happens when every villager died? You get a defeat screen. We don't currently, and that was actually kind of fun to look at sometimes, because what ended up happening in one of my towns early on is that everybody got eaten by wolves, and I just got to watch this midwinter scene of my abandoned town and this person lying outside their house while wolves chewed on them, and that was just screenshot worthy right there. We probably should have some sort of defeat screen though, like, you're out of villagers, no villagers are coming, I'm sorry. These maps are RNG generated. Will you share seeds so players can exchange? I'm going to pause right now because something's about to happen here. Will you share seeds so players can exchange these if you want to play the same map or if map generator? Yep. So there is a random seed that you can see in the menu right here, and you can share that seed to give someone else the exact same map you're playing on and the exact same conditions. And now, which I just paused while I was reading a question, we have a raid coming. So I don't have any defenses up. However, the town center does still serve as your first line of defense. So we're going to ring that doorbell, and we're going to get them shooting arrows. But I don't think they're going to do it in time. They're going to get away with some of my stuff. Ah, damn. They totally stole some of my stuff. I think they took all my gold. Right on stream. Yeah, Town Center does have a pretty long range, but as you can see, it doesn't do a ton of damage, so it wasn't enough to pick those guys off. And yeah, it looks like a bunch of my gold was gone. Looks like some of it actually might have been recovered, though. I did not realize I was actually playing on 3x at the time, so I should have totally slowed the game down for you guys to 1x. Too bad. Would have gotten a closer look at what the raiders were doing. So what ended up happening is they actually went right here to the storehouse, where all my gold was, and they just yoinked it since there was no walls up, there was no towers up, so there's nothing stopping them from getting right in there and just stealing. Is there a difference in heights? Did you have longer range shooting arrows from a hill? So while range does not increase, you do actually get a bonus to damage from uphill towers. So if I put a tower down here, you can see those numbers, those bonus values, are much smaller than up on this mountain. So if you want to be very strategic, you could put your storage buildings up on the mountain and then surrounded by towers up on the hill, and then those towers will do a lot more damage to anyone that's trying to get up the cliff. Yes, I'm not playing the meta Wold Storehouse Trade Post build. So once you get to tier 2, you will see that you can unlock palisade walls and gates. Since I've been slacking over here answering your questions, I actually didn't get on that. And now my population is just 2 people short, or no, 1 person short. And why is that? Because a bunch of people died to cholera. So I could have upgraded to tier 2 if I'd gotten onto it just a little bit sooner. But thanks to disease, I've been set back. So we're actually going to have to cut the stream off here soon to get back to working. So if you guys have any last minute questions, this is your chance to ask before we hop off the stream. As I've mentioned, anyone still just coming in right by the end, Farthest Frontier is coming to early access August 9th. So we're super pumped for you guys to be playing it real soon. There will be streamers getting the game as well real soon, so you'll be able to see this game on streams, on YouTube, and getting a more in-depth look from some people besides ourselves. But yes, I'll get to tier 2 at least before I cut the stream off. And yeah, is the crop field done? Come on guys, hurry up. When can Praetorians start streaming the game? Pretty soon, we'll talk. How does this game compare to something like Banish? What sets it apart? I mean, there's a number of things I would say that does set us apart. For example, our farming system is very different. Do buildings upgrade in Banish? I don't even remember anymore. I don't think they do. It's been a while since I've played Banished. Yeah, so now we're getting our town center upgrade to tier 2. We're getting this crop field. It's almost there. They'll probably have to finish it in year 6. Can you fail by upgrading and is lacking lower level production like in Constructor or Anno? So no, we don't have villager like castes like Anno does. So every villager can fulfill any tier of job. Will I hook you up with an early copy to stream? I don't know. Maybe if you ask super nicely. So now we got our town center up to tier 2. This has some immediate benefits. For example, we can get palisade walls up. If I wall in this whole area, raiders are not just going to immediately go right up to my storehouse and steal everything. We also unlocked many new building options throughout the different categories. One important one will be getting this wagon shop up. Wagons are important for transporting heavy goods from places like work camps and mines. And once we get that wagon shop up, we can get work camps up, we can get mines up, clay pits, sand pits. We actually have a supply of sand right over here that we can use to trade. Will there be any other forms of progression outside of building? Buildings, inventions, or stats. So we don't currently have a tech tree. It's something we've talked about doing potentially down the line. Will there be modding support during early access or post-release? It's very unlikely we would openly support modding during early access. During early access, we want to make sure we're ironing out bugs that are fundamental to the game. We don't want people adding wrenches into the mix by having mods running as well. Are there plans for GD2? Because if there are, you'll buy this game just to give financial support. We would not abandon the RPG genre, but it is not a game we're actively developing right this moment. We are working on a new engine that Grim Dawn 2 will most likely run on, so that is progression towards that. And looks like our field is now done, which means we're ready to assign crops. And as you can see, we've got our crop rotation here. We have to select the crops we want. So I could, for example, get some peas and beans going in there, and those will actually provide fertility for the ground, as you would in real life. But we also need to get some maintenance in there, because we want to get that weed level down. Clover is another good option, which won't produce food for your village, but it does help fertility and weed suppression. So there's a lot of depth in here in terms of how you want to lay out your crop rotations. And you will decide what you want to do with each field you place. And as this compost yard over here, which is why I built it out here, gets finished, or it gets finished producing and collecting the compost, it's actually going to turn it into compost you can put on the fields and improve their fertility further. Will there be multiplayer? There will not be multiplayer. Let's see how close we are to actually upgrading a building. Maybe we can get something. Oh, maybe this one will upgrade. Let's get a shrine down over here, and you can see the desirability went right up. Maybe a little garden, or get a couple gardens up too. See if we can get a building to upgrade before we stop. Can I drop any hints for what the new engine is being used to develop? The new engine is being used to develop our RTS game. Cauliflower is not a food. That absolutely is not. It's simply a delivery mechanism for other delicious things. Are there wagons to carry more goods? Yes, in fact, this is our wagon shop right over here. We just need to get more planks up, so I need to get more people chopping logs into planks so we can get all these things built. As if you guys won't host tournaments on Twitch to see whose town is the greatest in like 3 hours. Interesting. Competitive town building. I'd like to see that. Can you give an order to the buildings you are building? Not directly, but if you have people working in a building, they're gonna be doing what you need. So, for example, here I've actually increased the amount of people working in the saw pit from 2 to 4. So I'm going to effectively double the plank production. Can you check a tick box to prioritize building? Yes. So if I want to have them prioritize getting this shrine up, I can mark it as prioritized, and now builders will try to finish this building first. Of course, they actually already finished that one, but so there's nothing else. But if there are other buildings around, they would focus on this one first. And now that shrine is going to get up, and I think, hopefully, that will be enough desirability for this house. Yep, so that's 32%. Need to get some herbs. So let's get a forager over here to get those herbs collected. Oh, and looks like we've run out of wood. Let's mark some trees for chopping. Will the new engine allow for native Linux builds? I can't say Linux is a priority for us, so I can't say. Maybe just by virtue of how stable Linux is becoming with a bunch of modern tech, it might work fine. But we're not going to prioritize Linux if that's what you're hoping for. Is it possible to run out of resources on a map? Absolutely. If I wanted to clear cut this map of every tree, just set my villagers out to scour the world, yes, there would be no trees left. Stuff's on fire, they got this. And yes, while you can't permanently run out of resources on a map, should you play long enough or choose to do so, traders will still bring resources you might be able to purchase. Alright, we've got our forger over here. Let's get her on those herbs. And there she is. Mushrooms, don't prioritize the mushrooms, get those herbs. I'm pretty sure the new engine is in C++. I would be surprised if it was something else. But I'm not a programmer, so I can't tell you for sure. Grim Dawn seems like the polar opposite of Farthest Frontier. What has caused you to change the course so drastically? Well, first off, we want to have more diversity in our portfolio as a company. Putting all our hopes and dreams on just Grim Dawn is a strategy that many studios have approached in the past, and it hasn't always worked out. So we'd like to have more options. We'd like to have more IPs under our belt to offer you. And also, these are the kind of games that we like to play. Like the games that we work on, because we aren't funded by publishers, are games we enjoy. Like we love Town Builders, we love ARPGs, we love RTS games. And those are the next 3 games that are coming, incidentally. Well, RPG is already out, but you get the idea. We're working on what we like. When is the GD anime coming to Netflix? As soon as Netflix reaches out to us with a deal, we will be happy to talk. Are there unique choices like religion or culture or anything that we can choose that have pros and cons throughout the gameplay? Kind of have to create Barrow Home. You want to create Barrow Home in Frontier? Not currently. There aren't cultural or religious choices at this time, but we'll see down the line. Be cool to replant trees so the map doesn't become too barren for players who want to keep playing the same map. So these 2 trees here I actually planted. You can plant more trees as well. Now that I have some gold in town, you can get more trees up as well. So yes, you can replant trees. And some things like blueberry bushes, I don't know if I have any around here. You can actually relocate them, and you can, over time, if you accumulate all the berry bushes on the map, you can create a giant berry patch. Come on, let's get a house upgrading. Surely we can do that before the stream ends. Will this progress through the ages? The game does not progress through technological ages, if that's what you're going for. So you're fixed in this era of technology. Where's the closest frontier? So if you watched our story trailer, that's the closest frontier, and it's not a great place. That's why we're going to the farthest frontier, to get as far away from the closest frontier as we can. Why our own engine instead of using Unreal? So Unreal fundamentally is not built for ARPGs or RTS games. So even if we went with Unreal, we would still have to make a lot of our own changes to make it work the way we want. And on top of that, Unreal has, its own fees and costs to use, and we'd be paying money to Unreal pretty much for the rest of the game's existence for using that engine. So since we're gonna have to do our own things, and we like doing things our own way, we've decided to make our own. You didn't see the trailer, you're sorry. Well, take a look at the story trailer. It's up on YouTube. And you'll kind of get an idea of where the backstory, if you will, of these villagers is. Is this set in the same world IP as Grim Dawn? It is not. This is not a sequel or prequel to Grim Dawn. And looks like we did have a house upgrade to a homestead. So this is what a tier 2 home looks like. And that's just tier 2 out of 4, and that's what we have right now. And with that, I think we're going to call it for today, guys. Thank you all for stopping by the stream. I hope you enjoyed your first look at Farthest Frontier in action. I'm glad you guys came with lots of questions, and we're happy to answer them. Do stop by YouTube to see the music. Stop by Steam to wishlist the game if you haven't already. And we hope you enjoy what's still to come. We'll have another development update, I think next Monday, not this Monday, but next one. So we'll keep you guys posted with more information on how the game works. We hope you guys are as excited as we are to get this out in August. So thank you guys. Take care. See you next time.